Hello, welcome back into the Y'all Show, talk with a Southern accent. I'm John Rawl, and we're going to get our ACC report filed now, courtesy of 24/7 Sports Insider and also CBS Sports Digital Insider, Jonathan Leifheit. He's on with our ACC report. Jonathan, good to have you back on a week where we can talk about the ACC last week in terms of football. Boy, what an exciting weekend. Some really close, nail-biting games. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you. It's good to be back. It's been a while. But you're right. This past weekend, there were some really, really great games, headlined by, of course, the big game that everybody knows about, which was Notre Dame Clemson. That game goes to overtime, and Notre Dame manages to win it. I thought it was a spectacular, highlight show for what the ACC brings to the table. So really, really, really good weekend, as you mentioned, for the ACC.
And don't forget, the weekend started early Friday night. Another close game. Top 20 Miami, ranked number 11 at the time. They were able to hold on in Raleigh 44-41 against the Wolfpack.
Yeah, I thought that NC State just might pull that one out, and they had a pretty big lead. I think they were up at one point 41-31 later in the game into the fourth quarter. So Miami really had to kind of rally, kick a couple field goals, and then finally got the go-ahead touchdown. But another great game there, but Miami comes out on top.
Looking back at all the scores, there was one blemish in the ACC this past weekend. We'll get to that one in a second. UNC with a big win, 56-24 over their rival. The victory bell goes down the road to Chapel Hill, or will stay there with the victory over Duke, 56-24. A really close game at the Carrier Dome. The visitors from Chestnut Hill, Boston College, wins 16-13. Pitt dominated Florida State 41-17. Louisville, Virginia got postponed. And then the embarrassment, Jonathan Leifheit, Liberty at the buzzer with a 51-yard field goal, and they defeat in-state foe Virginia Tech 38-35. Your summation of some of these other games that happened in the ACC this past weekend.
Well, I thought it was a pretty good weekend for the ACC. I thought, as you mentioned, obviously the headliner, Clemson and Notre Dame, but the other games were pretty good as well. My particular favorite, I felt like he probably had a letdown against Syracuse, so that was a low-scoring affair. But they still managed to come out with a victory. They're really kind of turning into the Cinderella story this year. And then North Carolina just rolls right on. They continue to play really well against Duke, 56-24. That offense they have, I think, probably they certainly have. It's either them or Notre Dame that has the best backfield in the conference, and both of those are probably contenders for the best backfield in the country. And when you talk about Michael Carter and Williams, those two guys are fantastic. And then Notre Dame has also a great backfield. So those were some of the games that kind of caught my eye. I did manage to watch also that Miami NC State game. That was a pretty good one as well.
And Jonathan, what about that double overtime thriller with Notre Dame? I don't think they could have ever won that game if a guy named Lawrence had been playing in that one. But hey, that's the way it works these days. And Notre Dame survives.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence was there on the sidelines. He had passed the COVID tests. There's a cardiac protocol that you also have to pass as part of coming back after you've had a positive test, and that's one that takes a little more time, so he hadn't had a chance to pass that, but he'll be back. I tend to agree that they were probably win that game with Lawrence in there, but it's hard to fault the effort from the quarterback position. DJ, and I hope I get his name right, Ugalele, he passed for well over 400 yards on the day, so it's not like they suffered from a lack of production from the quarterback position. In my mind, where they lost this game was probably at running back. Travis Etienne, to me, had two major errors. One of them was kind of a bobble, and that went right into the hands of a Notre Dame defender, and he runs it back for a touchdown. And then late in the game, Clemson had the ball and a chance to really knock some time off the clock, and clinch the win. And Etienne inexplicably runs out of bounds and stops the clock. So Notre Dame doesn't have to, they get a lot more time. Notre Dame goes down the field and then ties it. So to me, this game wasn't lost because Lawrence was in the game. It was lost because ETN made a couple of bad plays.
Clemson fans, at least the ones that I saw social media wise, seemed to be okay with the loss. They wanted to have that perfect season, but they know if they play the cards right, they'll have a chance to maybe beat Notre Dame in an ACC championship game and get back to the college football playoff. So not all lost with Clemson's demise there in South Bend.
No, they will certainly get a chance for a rematch against Notre Dame. I don't think there's any other teams that are, unless Notre Dame has a big letdown coming up. I don't see any other teams. It's going to be those two in the championship. So you can expect a rematch, Clemson fans. You'll get that, and if you win, you will have beaten all the teams on your schedule, and the odds are pretty good that you are in the playoff. If Notre Dame wins, they'll likely be undefeated, and they will find their way to the playoffs. So the winner of that game, I think, is a lock for the playoff.
Well, that game in South Bend was certainly one of the best games we've seen all season long. A great showcase of ACC football. Yes, that includes you, Notre Dame, and the Irish with the home victory and their fans storming the field. As good as that was, Jonathan, what a bad game at Lane Stadium for the ACC's Virginia Tech Gobblers, as a top 25 team in Liberty now went in there. Virginia Tech had a chance to shut them up and send Hugh Freeze packing back to Lynchburg. And unfortunately, the Hokies dropped to 4-3. Is the seat for Justin Fuente extremely hot right now?
I think it's certainly warm. I'm not sure if it's hot, but it's definitely heated up. And I will tell you that I have to laugh at kind of how this game ended. I don't know how many of your viewers saw it, but the game was tied at 35 with about 8 to 10 seconds left, and Liberty lines up to kick the field goal. They kick the field goal, and Virginia Tech blocks it and runs it back for a touchdown. But lo and behold, Fuentes actually called timeout just prior to the play, to the snap, to basically reset it. Liberty throws a quick 10-yard out, takes it from a 60-yarder down to a 50 or 51-yarder, and then they kick it with 3 seconds on the clock, I think it was, and win the game. So Fuentes kind of outsmarted himself, and I will say this: Hugh Freeze is going to carry a lot of baggage with him, but don't be surprised when a team comes knocking and decides it's worth a risk to take with his baggage. We've seen a lot of folks kind of get, quote, rehabilitated and then go on to take positions elsewhere. We've seen it with certainly on the basketball side with folks like Rick Pitino, who ultimately then loses his job, or Bruce Pearl. Lots of folks, if you can win, they're going to find a place for you. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Freeze back on a P5 sideline at some point. But in the meantime, Virginia Tech, they're just going to have to kind of suffer through that and deal with that loss.
Jonathan, I had to admit it. I think you've heard this more than from just me. Winning equals forgiveness. Lots of rules get changed if you're a winner.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And we will certainly see. That's why I believe that Freeze will ultimately find his way back onto a sideline of a major college program.
Jonathan, let's talk about your fellow ACC pundit, and that's Billy Packer of the ACC Network. And the Pac-Man.
You mean Mark Packer?
Did I say Billy? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Man,
Billy's
how could I have messed that one up?
Billy's his dad, so
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, no, same family, just wrong generation. My apologies. Mark Packer, sorry. I've got basketball. Actually, that's why I messed up. We're going to talk a little ACC basketball in just a second, but Mark Packer's accounting has been posted from the ACC Network, and I don't know if you can see that or our audience can see that, but he's got a breakdown of 16 ACC, arguably, teams listed there. If you look at number 16, it says under review by the refs, so that's not really a real one. But I guess that is Packers' kind of prediction of how things are shaping up in the conference. I'll let you – I know you didn't have to look at other people's paper growing up when you were in your studies. But look at Mark Packer's paper there, and Packer's paper. What do you think of that compared to what you would do?
So the first thing that catches my eye is it's the Duke Blue Devils, not the Duke Blue Jackets. So I kind of have to laugh a little bit at that. But in terms of his ranking, would you ever have thought you would see a day where we're entering the 10th week of the season and Florida State is listed as the worst team in the ACC? I mean, that's just incredible. And it goes to show kind of, and we're hearing other rumors out of Florida State as well, but it shows their players have not bought into what Norvell has brought to the table. And I think they're quitting on him. There's been a lot of rumors about Florida State that also there's a lot of players that are probably going to say, yep, I'm done. I'm going to kind of either sit the rest of the year out or do a grad transfer and get the heck out of there. So expect some big turnover there. I think the other big surprise for me is Wake Forest at number 5. Going into the season, I thought they would have a nice season, but they're really turning out to be a pretty good program and doing a good job. And I also think Virginia Tech's probably ranked a little higher. I actually think I like them better down at number 8 than, or maybe even number 9 than I do at 6. So other than that, I think they're probably pretty close in alignment with where I would put them.
And we got this from the official ACC Network Instagram feed. Somebody there evidently needs to do a little correction on number 13. That's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah.
Unless Duke's changed their name. Thought. You know, Jonathan, we live in a crazy time. Maybe Duke has changed their nickname in the last couple of months.
Well, there is the Columbus Blue Jackets that play hockey in Columbus, Ohio. So maybe they're getting them confused with them. I don't know.
I understand. Hey, Duke fans, don't go high. We're going to talk a little basketball in just a second. But first, let's talk about what's happening here this 11th weekend of college football. You talk about Wake Forest. Man, they've got a great opportunity this week. They're going to be at Kenan Stadium. It's your high noon ACC Network kick as they take on the North Carolina Tar Heels. And one of these teams is going to emerge with a real chance to be knocking on the door of possibly a championship berth.
Well, I don't know that they're going to be knocking on any championship berths because I think that's pretty much going to be locked up between Notre Dame and Clemson. But given the dearth of kind of the bowl eligible teams that they're going to have across the country, I do think they're going to be knocking on the door of a pretty good bowl situation. So that game will be pretty big for both of them in terms of which bowl they get at the end of the season.
Jonathan, I come on here to give people inspiration and hope. And here you are just poo-pooing all over our ACC network, our ACC report here on this network of southernness. Hey, if Notre Dame starts faltering, which I predict they just might go down this week, by the way, who are they playing this week? It's the Holy War, Jonathan Leifheit, as their old Catholic foe, Boston College, welcomes them into Chestnut Hill for the first time as conference foes, BC, Notre Dame this weekend. Who you got?
Notre Dame, although I think it'll probably be closer because I think Notre Dame's probably going to be coming off a high after beating Clemson. So upset alert, but I do think that they'll be able to beat Boston College.
Also, Virginia Tech tries to rebound. They've got Miami in an early game there at Lane Stadium. You also have Louisville and Virginia. They'll be squaring off at Charlottesville this weekend. Pitt and Georgia Tech get together at Bobby Dodd Stadium. That's going to be a late evening kick there, 7 Eastern, 6 Central. FSU tries to get back on the right side of things, and they'll be at Carter Finley to take on the NC State Wolfpack here this 11th weekend of college football. And most notably, I think you saw that I did not mention Clemson playing this weekend. So they're evidently having a couple of days rest extra. They need it with players like Lawrence still trying to get past the positive coronavirus. But that's where we are. Speaking of the coronavirus and stuff, Jonathan, how, now that we haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks, in your best summation, how have things gone on that front from an ACC perspective?
Probably about like I expected. I thought there might be some cancellations of games, and it seems like particularly the Virginia teams have been hit harder than others in terms of cancellations and also kind of loss of players. But by and large, they're doing all right. They're certainly, I think, in a better position than some of the Pac-12 and other conference teams. We saw a number of games that were canceled, and then we also had the Big Ten. I think Wisconsin had a number of positives, so their game was also canceled. Nebraska had a game canceled earlier this year. So I think the ACC as a conference has done a really good job of keeping themselves on a bubble, them and the SEC. The Midwestern and West teams, not as well, it seems to be. So all in all, you kind of got to like what you've seen thus far. We expected some games to be potentially canceled, and that's happened. There's still room in the schedule for more of that to happen. They intentionally put 10, I think it was 11 games over a 13-week schedule. So they're gonna be. I think they're gonna be fine. I think it's working out well.
We are talking to our ACC Insider, Jonathan Leifheit of 24/7 Sports and CBS Sports Digital. This is the ACC Report, and we've got your football covered. Jonathan, if we won't be in interfering too much with your busy schedule, could we get a little basketball talk out of you?
You probably could, but I'm going to be honest. I haven't had a chance to look just yet, but the ACC did release the schedule for the upcoming season. I believe games start on November 23rd. Most teams just got their schedule yesterday, so I haven't had much of a chance to review that.
Yeah.
But all in all, it's exciting news to finally see they're going to do some basketball. I don't believe also from kind of an attendance perspective, there's been no real guidance yet on what to expect from a fan perspective. I think it'll probably be similar to what we saw with football. There'll be some places that'll say, yep, up to 20%. They might even go less than that since it's indoors. And then there'll be places that won't allow it all. Syracuse comes to mind particularly for that one, where they won't allow probably anybody to be in attendance. But all in all, it's real similar situation with football. You've got it up in front of you, 20 conference games. Normally that's 18, so they're bumping that up a little bit. And then I believe total of I think they've got just a few non-conference games, but they're largely not going to do a whole lot beyond that.
Yeah, there you have it. The formula breaks down to the 20 conference games. Most teams are hardly going to play any non-conference action. There's going to be, at least from what I'm seeing, maybe the chance there are going to be a few non-conference games, and that's at least what's on the schedule now. All this, of course, subject to change, but if you're looking purely from an ACC standpoint, right there, 20 conference games, you'll have two primary rivals. I assume that means home and away for those.
Yep.
4 repeat opponents, and then 8 single games. That is your ACC plan for this most unusual season, of which, from what I'm seeing, late November is when some of these games are going to get up and going.
Yep, November 23rd. And everybody will have at least one league game in December, which is a little bit of a change from the past. They've traditionally, you might get one at the end of December, but now there's specifically going to be one, in December for sure. So that's the other big change. And of course, to get 20 conference games in instead of 18, that's how they'll have to do it.
All right, and there's that breakdown. Now, what about some of the teams that are expected to do well here in 2020, 2021? Well, we bring out, courtesy of the ACC Network, 4 ACC teams ranked in the top 25 in the preseason poll. Virginia at 4, Duke, are they at 5? I can't see that too well.
Number 9.
Number 9. Then you have UNC checking in at number, 16?
16 and 21 is Florida State.
Yes, I need to go to the optometrist, Jonathan. But I don't think my eyes are that bad. I'm seeing North Carolina in the top 20, and this follows a season last year where UNC was pretty darn awful compared to what they normally are.
Yeah, but in their defense, they had an inordinate number of injuries last year. It just seemed like every other week you were looking at them, and they had another player that was gone for the season or gone for 5-7 games. They just had a lot of injuries, so they'll have all their talent back. They'll have all those injured players back. Don't be hurting for North Carolina. They've got talent, and I expect to see them playing well next year.
All right, and it's Duke and Virginia. Some say that's the top ACC versus ACC game on the 2021 schedule. So we'll be watching it. We'll have Jonathan Leifheit back on to talk some ACC basketball and more right here on the Y'all Show. And again, this is November. It's time to talk ACC basketball, and Jonathan will be on to do that and so much more. Jonathan, thank you for taking some time to come on our Y'all ACC report.
You bet. You guys have a wonderful rest of your week.
We will do that. Thank you, sir. And that will conclude our ACC report for the time being. We'll be back on somewhere around Turkey Day with more Y'all ACC goodness. Stay tuned to the show that is all about the South.